back and bigger than ever. It's the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast brought to you by Soonerscoop.com, and the entire gang is here. It's been a huge week of travel for our own Josh McCuistion. He's been out to California, 2 different places, then the Rivals Dallas camp, and now he's back home. No doubt tackled by his family. Josh, was it the best feeling that you've ever had as a father coming home after being gone for 4 days?
I can't lie. It was like one of the really bad Folgers commercials, like waiting for to come home. That's what was happening in my head. The problem was we ordered food when I landed, and I was like, I'll stop by and pick it up. It's right on the way home. It took me an hour to get my food. I sat in this restaurant for 40 minutes, and Tiffany's like, just leave it. And I'd already paid. It was a whole thing. And they were super apologetic.
Name names, Josh. You got to name names. Who f***ed you over?
I mean, they straight up, they lost your order is what they did.
Yeah.
There's no, there's no 100%.
Question. I told Tiffany, I go, at one point they came over and they're like, what? Because it's all connected to your phone number. They said, well, what's your phone number again? And I give it to them. And they go back in the back, and I see them kind of come back, and they're trying really hard not to look at me, and they're doing a pretty good job of it. But the body language is like, yeah, we screwed this guy over. We got to fix this fast. And then they gave me 50% off my next order or something. They were really apologetic, but I waited for 20 minutes because that's about how long it takes. It's Chinese food. I mean, we all know it's about 15, 20 minutes is what they all tell you.
Wow.
So I waited 20, and then I went in the restaurant. Part of it is they got slammed all of a sudden. There were probably 10 to 12 people standing there waiting for their takeout orders when I walked in. So they just got hit all at once. So that's some of it, but it's an hour, and it's Chinese food. It's quick.
I think there has to be some kind of straight up rule. If you wait more than
a Domino's
25
rule.
minutes, it's okay that you can go back and say, you know what, I don't want this anymore. I need to go somewhere else.
Or you should just say, how long is it going to be, and this is going to be free when you finally give it to me.
Yeah,
that too.
That's what I was going to say. If it's longer than 30 minutes, food's free. That should be the method there.
That happened to me. It was Christmas Eve 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember. And the only place that was open that it was interesting to me was Little Caesars. And so it's you order on the app, and they have the oven, and you just go in and pick it up. And so
they do the no contact, right?
Yeah. And so I went in 20 minutes after I ordered it because it said my order was ready. And I literally, and this is in the worst part, it's where all the homeless people hang out and the bums are there. So you want to get in and out. And I sat in there. This was before COVID, so thankfully. But I sat in there for an hour, and it's you get caught. I know the feeling, Josh. You're caught, and you're it's been 30 damn minutes, and you're you start hate waiting. You're I'm going to get this fucking food. They are going to give this to me. It can't take more than 5 more minutes, and then 20 minutes later, you're it can't take more than 5 more minutes, and it's you can't stop yourself from just walking out.
It reminds me of sometimes I read a lot of books, or I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I'm driving and traveling and stuff, and I'll be listening to it. I'm this is awful. This is so shitty, but it'll be really well reviewed. And I'm okay, I got to get to the end. Surely it's going to pay off. And every single time it is terrible. It's just bad. And I knew it halfway through, and I should have just walked the hell out. And now I will say I've got a good little Chinese place. So the food was good when it finally came, but it was I
Eddie,
showed
you know
up.
what
and I thought
this is? You know what this is, Eddie?
What?
This is In-N-Out karma for Josh McCuistion.
No, that is what it is for bringing the bad name to it. And I don't want it to be I don't think that.
See, okay, so
my official take on fast food burgers, they're all fast food burgers. I don't think one is better than the other.
Why do you have to? It's just like pizza. Why do you have to hate on pizza? All pizza's pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean,
agreed.
even the shitty pizza that you get frozen is I'll eat a DiGiorno anytime.
Well, I won't, but
I'll eat a Tombstone. I mean, you put pizza in front of me.
I'm above the warm-up pizza, the oven pizza.
You look like a person that is above things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love DiGiorno.
I think I ate it so much when I was growing up that I just I kind of slowly phased out of it.
Yeah, I had to switch to the stuffed cheese. I can't just eat the regular rising DiGiorno anymore. I ate too much of that, which is really stupid because they're very expensive. Like
DiGiorno's are?
Yeah, for frozen pizza they are.
Yeah.
Like $15?
No, like $8 or $9.
Oh, okay.
Well, $15 if you go to like an On-Q.
I haven't been to a store in like 3 years.
Have you noticed how much On-Q marks up their frozen shit? It's ridiculous.
Never. That's another thing that I don't do. I don't normally eat food from gas stations.
You don't like roller dogs?
Not really.
Tornadoes?
Oh, I'm with Eddie on this. Yeah, I don't.
I mean, sometimes you can find some good food at a gas station, but it has to be like they're known for something.
To me, I treat gas station food like a roller coaster or a horror ride. I'm always in for tuna fish salad from a gas station.
That just sounds like that would be the worst decision of all time.
It is. It's a terrible decision, but it's a Russian roulette of bad food choices.
I think I'd rather go through like chemotherapy for a month before I'd do that.
Don't say that.
Carrie's like Ron Burgundy drinking milk in the sun. He's like, I immediately regret this decision.
There have been mornings where I've had to sit out the radio show for a segment or two because I was just dying on the inside.
Oh God.
That is.
But no, I'm telling you, it is weird. Like it's like a pregnancy thing. I think it's like I love tuna fish sandwiches from gas stations and
so disgusting
and Lay's dill pickle chips. Like it's a magical combination for me.
Now, the only exception I will make is I will get a sandwich from Buc-ee's, like the big.
Buc-ee's isn't that's not a gas
Buc-ee's
station.
is damn near a restaurant.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
Buc-ee's
it
isn't
really
a gas
is.
station.
Like they have actual food that you can buy. Like their barbecue
They're
sandwiches,
making
not
food
bad
in front of you.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yep.
well, Quick Trip does that too.
They make jerky on hand, and it's ridiculously good.
It's closer to Buc-ee's than it is to like something else.
Quick Trip, you
Quick
mean?
Trip, yeah.
I was talking to Rob Cassidy about this a while back because we were comparing gas stations from areas we've been to, Wawa's in Florida and on the East Coast and that kind of stuff. And I started kind of going over. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't do this. It doesn't. He goes, how big is this place? And I started thinking about it. It's like the Walmarts that we grew up with, like the small before they became super centers, like when they were just kind of a normal, like I'm sure in Duncan, like the Duncan Walmart was about the size of what a Buc-ee's is now. It's just that damn big. Because I mean, you can go in there and buy nice clothes, like nice fishing. I'm gonna be by the water kind of shirt. You can buy nice stuff.
Fucking furniture in Buc-ee's. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yes.
That place, it's almost overwhelming. I don't like going inside.
No, it's
very
too
often.
much. And it's not worth it with the traffic outside.
I've never been to a Wawa. I don't think I've been
have
that far
one just down the road from me. Yeah.
Oh, they have them in Houston?
No, the only time I've ever encountered them is in Florida, and I literally made a point when I went to see Mario Williams, when I was Mario and Danny, when I was driving home from Danny's game that Friday night. I was like, I've got to go see a Wawa. I just want to see what it's about. This is the shit that happens when you travel a lot. You take value in a fucking convenience store, you want to see what it's like.
And that's why this week was so hurtful to Eddie and I, because look, our entire relation, the reason Eddie and I get along, this is like talking about being newlyweds together for us. The one thing that we bonded over was when we would go to the West Coast, either Arizona or, L.A., wherever.
I think it's like the most Oklahoma thing to do. You have to stop at the In-N-Out.
And I had it the first time at the Holiday Bowl in 2005. There was one right across from my hotel. And it was the first time I ever went there. And all you knew about it in 2005 was, well, that's where all the, the Hollywood starlets go to get their late night food, and I want to check this out and see what it's all about. And this is way before it was ever in Oklahoma or in Texas. And so Eddie and I we'd go almost every day.
Yeah, we went quite a bit in the first trip around, or the first time around.
And I remember it was something that you shared that it was like a club that you would be in.
We hit up the one in Phoenix quite a bit too, over in the Fiesta Bowl.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the one in Phoenix we went to a bunch, but we loved going to In-N-Out. That was our favorite thing.
It's good.
And it allowed us to live basically together in harmony, other than when he was puking in my car.
Well, that's because me and John Shin drank 3 bottles of tequila on New Year's in the hospitality room at the Camelback.
And for some reason that morning, I'm like, you're drinking Misty Mountain Blueberry Powerade. you're just dehydrated to no end, and you're just guzzling bottles.
It's legitimately the most hungover I've ever been.
And I knew when you were drinking that there's a chance that this is going to come up in my car.
I almost died. I literally almost died that day.
Was that the Sam Bradford, West Virginia?
No, that's when that was
the Iowa game,
or Iowa, yeah.
Oh, that was the Insight Bowl.
It wasn't Fiesta.
I do remember laying in bed watching Sam play for the Rams in that wild card game against Seattle that Sunday night. Though it got flexed out, I think, to the Sunday night game, or it might not have been a wild card. It might have been they had to win to get into the playoffs.
We basically have, and Bob has been added. We have a holy trinity of road destinations: In-N-Out, Buffalo Wild Wings, and Chili's.
Boston Market used to be on the short list.
Boston Market. It's up there.
That's what I think of when I think of you two. I think of Boston Market every time because I've never stepped foot in one, and you two
labeled that. It is
you
good,
two
though.
can wax poetic about Boston Market's menus.
The thing was, our hotel that we always get in Las Colinas is right across the street from a Boston Market. Right. It used to be. I think that thing closed now.
I could see that.
See, now, I do want to say, in defense of your In-N-Out burger love, I have a huge problem with the fries. Like that's almost a non-starter for me.
I get it, but
bigger
fries
issue though
are fries. I mean, who has great fries? Tell me who. Like McDonald's has the best fries.
McDonald's has great fries, legitimately
Burger King
great fries.
has never had good fries.
I can't
Wendy's
tell
has
you the
never
last time
had
I ate a
good
Burger
fries.
King. Yeah,
nobody does fries.
If I get a fast food burger, I almost invariably go to Sonic and I get tater tots. Because I don't like their fries either.
Anarchy, anyways.
See, I think Sonic has the worst of all the burgers.
Oh, no.
It's been so long since I've eaten at Sonic.
See, that's the way I feel about almost everything else. Like, I don't eat McDonald's. I don't eat Burger King. I don't go to either those places.
We've all been to Culver's together. What'd you think of Culver's?
Culver's is pretty good, and there's one actually now in North Houston. Carrie, whenever you're forced to come down and reset up my equipment, there's a stop for you, buddy. There's a Culver's up there. So
I ain't going to no Culver's when El Tiempo is in town.
Oh, fair enough. That's the better choice. And that was the other side of what I was going to say. I have been shamed by other recruiting media that I don't stop and eat at all the little hole-in-the-wall cool places. They're like, oh, you were in East Texas. Did you go by Tom's little shack with 4 tables? And I'm like, no, I stopped somewhere and just kept moving. Because I am all about point A to point B. I want to do that as quickly as possible.
You didn't hit Jason's oink stand?
Exactly. So I have made a pact with myself that I'm going to try to do more local stuff. So when I was out there, I went to Gus's Chicken, Gus's famous chicken place.
There's one in Fort Worth, by the way.
Oh, what? A Gus's?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It's really good. It's really good.
It was great. And I ordered way too much because I was like, I want to try a little bit of everything. And I was like, this is entirely too much food. But the chicken was great.
Did you get the mac and cheese? The mac and cheese is fantastic.
I did. I like that. That was, and I think, was it the one that, does it have, there? I got, no, it was a different place. I got mac and cheese at a different place that I didn't like at all. They had crumbled Fritos on top of it. And I was like, nope, that's a no for me. Yeah, it was too much. It was too salty. But yeah, so I've been trying to try new stuff, and that was part of it too. I was like, I've had In-N-Out. I want to go to do something different. If I hadn't had it before, I absolutely would have gone.
Matt Stepp and Mike Roach are encyclopedias of barbecue in the state of Texas. I actually want to take a tour. I want to take a tour with one of them someday.
I live in Houston. They're like, you haven't been to Pinkerton's at least 12 times? I'm like, I don't even know where it is.
I will say,
and they are
the pictures of Pinkerton's. You're missing out.
Yes, I need to go. I will make that a point to happen
when I come down.
Yeah. That is supposed to be righteously good barbecue.
So, travel talk got us here. Eddie's showing me a picture of Pinkerton's.
That looks good.
I mean, barbecue's another thing.
There's a difference in really good barbecue and bad barbecue, segueing into Lincoln Riley.
Yes.
We still haven't been able to talk to him yet.
We will talk to him tomorrow. Who has the guts to ask him about it will be the thing. I guess I would be expected to ask him about it.
Does it... Well, how do you phrase it? Do you use a knife with your brisket, Lincoln? Or can you cut it with a fork?
I think you have to leave it open-ended. You don't want to be too judgmental because I don't want to get blocked on Twitter.
That would never happen with an OU coaching staff member.
So hard to get unblocked.
So, I mean, let's talk about your trip first, Josh, before we get into OU football proper. But you went out and you saw Smash Williams, and then you went up and saw Tyreek Hill.
For those that don't know, Kerry quite succinctly compared Mekhi Lemon to Smash Williams from Friday Night Lights, and he's not wrong. Like, there is absolutely, there is some comparison, and it didn't occur to me in real time, but as soon as he said, I was like, yeah, a lot of that. So, so we talked about it a little bit on the board, and I know the guys kind of know the stories, but the trip got off to an auspicious start. And I show up to Huntington Beach High School, which is where the game is happening between Los Alamitos and Fountain Valley. And I am told that I would be on the list. I was covered. We had checked it again. Adam and Gorney and I had worked on it together. I get there, and they're like, you're not on the list. And California is still at a very, very heightened state of alert. And I didn't think I was going to get in. So I'm sitting there watching through this metal fence the Los Alamitos. I'm watching Malachi Nelson. I'm watching Mekhi Lemon. I'm just watching them warm up. I could be out there, and like, it's this gorgeous, picturesque, sunny day. There's palm trees everywhere. It would have been just one great picture after another. And I'm like, I'm getting nothing. And then I see him go back in the locker room. I'm like, well, okay, I've got 20 minutes. I've talked to the principal of the school or vice principal, and she's contacted the athletic director of Los Alamitos, and he's going to be there to help me any minute. Well, like 40 minutes go by, and he hasn't shown up. The game kicks off, and he hasn't shown up. Finally, it's 14-0 Los Alamitos, and he comes over and is like, oh, yeah, he's fine. We couldn't have done that over the phone. Like, I thought he needed to talk to me, had some questions. There was none of that.
Jeez.
It was a little frustrating, and I'm like, and it was one of those things where all that had gone wrong, the audio stuff with the Gilliam trip, all that stuff, I'm like, this isn't my fault. I didn't do this. I did everything I could do, but it's just a series of events. But I get in, and, I put it up on the board in the live thread. Immediately, they throw a little swing pass to Mekhi Lemon, and I'm like, he's not running. I'm watching him on the camera. I'm like, what's he doing? All of a sudden, you see him wind up, and he throws the ball, and Malachi Nelson catches a touchdown pass literally 10 feet away from me. Well, no, not literally. That would have me in the end zone. But it was very close. And from there, it was great. I mean, Mekhi Lemon returned a punt for touchdown. Nelson, I was talking to Adam Gorney about it in Dallas. We ran into each other at the Rivals camp, and, we'll get to that. But it reminds me of Spencer Rattler. The way the ball comes out of his hand, it's different. Like, it just pops. The way – and he's so – I mean, and the scary part is, Eddie – his body reminds me a lot of Sam when Sam was that young. Like,
sure,
super long-armed and lean, and you're like, his arm is going to get so much bigger as he starts to fill out. Like, he's I mean, and people get too crazy about arm strength, but that will never be a problem for him. Like, he has a lot of natural velocity. And talking to people around there, I mean, there is a lot of cause for confidence for Oklahoma fans with the number 2 overall player in the 2023 class and number 1 quarterback. So, off to a great start. And with Mekhi Lemon, Nelson pretty much told me in the interview, and I think we've got it up on the front page, that, the second he commits, he will be all over Mekhi Lemon, and he expects Mekhi Lemon to come with him wherever he's going to go. So, Oklahoma could be in very good shape for 2 of the, top 10, 15 players in the state of California.
Now, he's the guy in that class for Oklahoma?
Nelson?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, there's no question. They haven't made any other offers. There's no question. I think that they would be just as interested in Arch Manning if he was interested, but that's such a convoluted mess to get through with, all the different people involved and his connections to the SEC. It's hard for me to see him going anywhere that isn't basically Ole Miss or LSU.
And Arch is not Peyton or Eli's son. He's their brother, Cooper's son.
He's Cooper's son. Yeah. So, and is outstanding. You could make a case for he or Nelson, but Oklahoma went on Nelson early, has never wavered, and just talking to him, watching, going back and watching the interview afterward, it'd be real. Clemson's a threat. Clemson's the one school that I would say, if somebody could make a run, it's them. But it would be a pretty big upset at this point in time.
That'd be wild for Clemson to go back to the West Coast to get another quarterback.
Yeah, yep. With DJ, I mean, that's, like I said, it's interesting if this is going to become OU's policy. If you can do it where you get the number one quarterback in the country every other year, cool, man. No problem. You can make that work. Find a guy like they did this year, transfer in, have that, quality quarterback that can take snaps for you in practice, provide competition, do all that stuff. But, that year you miss, that could get real scary real fast.
OU is produced 3 starting quarterbacks currently in the NFL. So
that was one of the first things that he brought up with Josh during the interview.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like, how could you argue against what they're putting out right now?
Trevor is the first guy for Clemson for them to really, beat their chest about.
Deshaun Watson.
Oh, yeah. Deshaun.
They're not beating their chest these days.
They're not mentioning him.
I think he's on some recruiting flyers right now.
Yes, I'm wondering, are they taking all the banners of him down? They've got them all lowered to half mast?
Not at Clemson, they won't.
Yeah, Dabo will claim that he's born again after he comes back to campus for the spring game.
Yeah.
There you go.
So then you go to see Raleek Brown in Modern Day, and tell us about that trip.
Yeah, no crazy highlights. I knew the right people to talk to. We rolled right in. Other than there's a parking garage issue, but we won't get into the travels of Josh. We'll try to skip some of that.
You didn't know how to park a regular car? You didn't have the F-350?
Yeah, I was like, my car just fits perfectly into this space. Can I take 2 of these? But no, I get there. The crazy thing about Modern Day, and it's tough for people that haven't seen these kind of programs. Like Jinx and Union are great, and I love both those programs. D1 guys every year, but you're talking about each year 3 or 4 OU caliber guys on your roster. That's insane. That just no one does that. So you walk out and you're just like, that dude, I don't know who that guy is, but he's a Division I player. I don't know who that guy is, but and it's just one guy after another. And the weirdest thing about it is I start taking some pictures, because anytime I go, I'll shoot video or not video, but pictures of anybody, for a kid that's committed to Oregon or a kid that's committed to Texas or whatever, and help rivals with those. But it was a weird sensation. I was like, who the hell is going to use these? Like, it's over. Those guys have signed. They're not putting stuff up on their front page trying to, get some attention for their site. Like, that, they're not writing stories about that guy anymore. So that was a weird sensation. But to Raleek Brown, it's crazy. The kid doesn't start for Modern Day right now, and I understand why. It's not about him not being good enough, but there's just a senior running back that is going to, I believe, Air Force. That is a good player in front of him. But, man, you could tell the difference instantly when he got on the field. His first carry, he goes off left tackle, and I thought he was going to break it. And then they end up basically a good Santa Margarita team basically just has 4 guys, around him, just slowly closed down. They're like, don't move too fast. It was like trying to cage a wild animal. They're like, we've got him. Don't go too fast. Everybody at the same speed. Cause they knew if somebody got aggressive, he would bounce around him and then he'd be gone again. It was crazy just watching how quick he is. And you guys had seen him. I never had. And getting a feel for his speed, Eddie and I were talking about, because Eddie had seen the highlights when I ran into him in Dallas on Sunday. Watching that highlight where he scores the touchdown off the left side, I'm so tight in on him on camera, I can't really appreciate how fast he's moving until all of a sudden other guys start coming into the picture as he's near the end zone, and they're 20 yards behind him. And you're like, what just happened? And the guy's acceleration is just, it's not normal. It's crazy. Now, at the same time, getting to see him in person, I now have a better feel for what kind of size we're talking about. This is a guy that is 5'7" and some change, maybe 5'8" on a good day.
He's small. He's
little, but again, with the way Oklahoma's talking about using him, and he talked about it in the interview. They want to use him as a receiver, as a return man. They're going to do a lot of different stuff with him. It's hard. If you're an OU fan, I could completely get the level of excitement. This is a guy that can literally on any play that he has the ball, you're going to hold your breath and think he could score.
It's just different type of speed. I mean, it's like, okay, that's what everybody's interested in.
There's two types of speed in my book. There is what you see out of a Raleek Brown, and then there's what you see out of like an Adrian Peterson, where it's just a massive human being that runs by you.
They can also run that fast.
And he moves air like nothing you've ever seen before. Like it's like Adrian Peterson the first day of practice, having him run by us on the sideline. Still to this day, but just running past us, one of the most impressive athletic feats I've ever seen.
Was it him that tweeted out that video of the play? And I'll never get past that one. The run he made against Oklahoma State, where he comes out of that spin move, and in like two steps, he's at full speed.
Yes, that's a ridiculous run. That run doesn't get enough love.
The ability to accelerate, because that was a good Oklahoma State team with a lot of speed in the secondary, and he dusted them. He left them behind.
It's probably because everybody was still outside of Boone Pickens Stadium drinking. Wasn't it like the first play out of halftime? Pretty sure it was first possession.
But you're right.
It was like walking up the stairs to my seat as it happened.
He spun and maintained, speed. It was ridiculous. And that he was so strong that no one slowed him down. Because he was spinning through arm tackles at the time. All right, so, I'm glad you got to see Raleek Brown. He is really impressive to see in person. And I do. I mean, I just think I don't know what type of 40 time he runs. I mean, does he run track in high school?
Not to my knowledge, and I'm guessing it's largely because he just doesn't, he spends so much time with his trainers and that kind of stuff that I just don't think he messes with it much.
But, I mean, he does. To me, you would use him like the Chiefs use Tyreek Hill. I mean, that's what I envision for him, just with his size and everything and his speed.
Oh, yeah. I think there is absolutely, and it's funny because, I mean, like he'll talk about, being liking comparisons to guys like Reggie Bush and stuff like that. And you're like, I mean, I get like you have some similar skills, but for you to get the most out of your ability, you're going to have to be used a little differently than that. You don't need to run between the tackles 15 times a game. That's not going to be where you make the best of your life. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how he navigates that. But he seems open to it. I'm going to have some stuff in the scoop this week. I talked to some USC insiders kind of about how USC was feeling about that situation, and I came away. I kind of thought they were going to give me a feeling like this is going to come down to the wire, and that's not what I got. It was a little different than that, and I think I came away a little more confident in Oklahoma's chances than maybe I had been before.
It did seem positive just in that it seems like the communication lines between Raleek Brown and Oklahoma are obviously very good. Like, it seems like they talk quite a bit.
Yeah, it was, I mean, kind of to summarize, like I said, I don't want to take too much away from the scoop, but it was definitely kind of there's the official visit, and then, anything could happen. Like, it wasn't like this is the plan and this is what we're going to do. And, I was talking to somebody and they were like, I don't really care what USC does this year. It's Helton or Lincoln Riley. Like, that's not that hard of a decision. And so, like, it was interesting. It wasn't exactly what I expected to get from it. Though, again, USC's not going away. They're going to try to make this interesting and should be pretty good this year with a guy that, if there's anybody that is more likely to be the number one overall pick than Spencer Rattler, I think it's probably Keaton Slovis.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe Lincoln can do some things to kind of feature Mario Williams to be like, hey, Raleek, this is what you're going to do. Because I was trying to think of, like, it's been a while since Lincoln's had, that kind of toy at receiver. I mean, he used Marquise Brown and his speed, and he and Baker figured it out. And he was halfway through the season before he really became a huge factor. But I mean, they had CeeDee Lamb, and then they tried to do the same thing with Charleston Rambo last year. It just didn't work, and they haven't really developed that. And Braden Willis got hurt. I think he could have been a kind of a special weapon, but that was the thing with Rattler being young. Lincoln kind of had to take a step back of being kind of the mad scientist of offense a year ago because they couldn't run the ball either effectively. So if Mario Williams really is what we're hearing, like that's going to be a nice piece for Lincoln to mess around with to kind of show Raleek Brown, hey, this is what you're coming to.
Well,
and Brown announced his official visit for Nebraska weekend, so he should have a lot of chances to see just what that offense can do.
Yeah, and he, I mean, for people that, like I said, would say, oh, we'd like to have him for the barbecue, he's coming for the barbecue. He talked about it in the interview. He's going to come out on his own dime for the barbecue and then come back for his official for the Nebraska game, which, Bob, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but my feeling, just watching what kids are saying and what they're kind of setting up, that seems like the weekend OU starting to circle as a big weekend. Like it seems like if you're not going to be official for the barbecue, we want you here for Nebraska. That seems to be what I'm watching happening.
Yeah, and that's sort of the trend in recruiting the last few years is to get that big non-conference game you load up there because, face it, by November, like when the real big conference home games are happening, most of your class is decided, and you're not really looking to try to bring in or lure in anybody else at that juncture. So it's become the barbecue and that first big home game in September, whichever one you decide it is, and those end up being the two big weekends that's trying to set up what the rest of your class is going to look like.
What's interesting about that Nebraska game is ESPN and Fox are kind of like when you have buddies that share season tickets. Like you have like a lottery at the beginning of the season, or not a lottery, but like you decide what games you want, and I want this series, or I want the Lakers game at home, or I want my favorite teams, the Sixers. So if the Sixers are coming to Oklahoma City, I want to see them. Like ESPN and Fox kind of do the same thing with games, and I was told ESPN has priority over Fox this year, when other times it's reversed. So I think ESPN will take OU Texas as their first choice. And I'm not sure if that means Fox will take OU Nebraska. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because you want to avoid that 11 a.m. start. But I think Fox will probably end up with OU Nebraska this year, which could dick OU over.
Big noon kickoff, yep.
It's all going to be at 11 a.m. or noon anyways. I think people are used to it. Maybe they could figure out a way to get a night game. I don't know what the schedule looks like that weekend. What would that be, 17th? September 17th?
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of way looking ahead kind of stuff.
Sure.
But, okay, so Rivals Camp Dallas. Bob, let's start with you because Josh is dominating this B. What were your impressions? What did you take out most from the talent in Dallas?
Liked seeing Chris McClellan, the defensive lineman from Owasso, go up against that offensive line group because we all sort of agreed the defensive line, top to bottom, wasn't all that great. But when you've got Cam Dewberry and Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell and Jacob Sexton, you had a lot of tackles and linemen for McClellan to show what he could do, and he's on that level. I don't know how far above or what his ceiling is beyond this, but that was a fantastic showing to let people know why the flood of offers that have come in for him in the last 4 to 6 weeks are legit, and why OU should be pushing for him. As much as those defensive line numbers might end up being tight if they get all their plan A guys, McClellan is someone that has to be in this mix some way, somehow.
Now, did McClellan get a 5-star invite after that?
Won the MVP.
Yes.
Okay. So, you win the MVP, you get the 5-star invite.
Yeah, he was extremely good. I've seen him now, I guess, twice in the last month, and he's been incredible.
Now,
When he's
I
inside,
wanted to,
for sure.
yes, I wanted to give it up to Rivals a little bit because that's a 3-star guy. That's not. I mean, in the position MVP doesn't always get the invite. So I thought it was pretty good of Rivals to be like, okay, our rating's not where it needs to be. We're wrong on this kid. He's come in against a really good O-line group, done very well. We're good moving forward with this. Like we need to have this guy here because there was like almost instantly the buzz kind of started when he showed up and everybody's like, who is that kid? Because he's not just a good player that had a good day. He looked great. I mean, like he's really starting to put it all together.
Well, he looks the part too, doesn't he, guys?
Uh-huh. I think he came in at 6'4", 299 or something like that. So, I mean, he was right where you'd want him to be, not carrying a bunch of bad weights. I mean, he's a high school kid. So, I mean, you're going to see him get bigger and stronger and, a little more impressive, obviously, as he gets older. But it's definitely not soft like I thought maybe at times that you could accuse him of in years past.
Let's talk about Talon Shetron. We don't have to spell his name, so we're good there.
I can.
I think all four of us can spell it.
Not going to give it up to Rivals on that.
But he was the wide receiver MVP. And Josh, I mean, I know not all the 5-star rankings are out yet, but how confident are you that he is securing a 5-star status?
If you mean by the end of the
Right.
cycle, I think it's a pretty good chance. I think he's moving in that direction. The best way for him to do it is if Eddie and Bob can't go to any of his games. Like that's gonna stop him.
Does this count as a win for you two? You were both there, and he performed
fair.
well, and he was the MVP.
Well, he's been good at camps.
Yeah.
This is third camp I've seen him. He's been just fine.
How hilarious would it have
That's
been if like
okay.
quarterbacks, like some quarterback had like a personal beef with Talon, or like I'm not throwing him the damn ball, screw them, and then like somehow it's still Bob and Eddie just ruining his career.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean,
Or just that he got matched up with a one kid that shouldn't have been there in the first place, and he just never could hit him when he was wide open.
Guy just keeps throwing it into the dirt. But no, I think Talon is absolutely pushing in that direction because, guys, that's the other thing is every time I see him, he looks a little bigger. Like he is starting to fill out and his frame's getting bigger. And, I know there was an interview Woody Womack, our guy, did kind of comparing him to CeeDee Lamb. He is so far ahead of where CeeDee Lamb was at the same age physically. It's not even a contest. Like, I mean, CD was just God-given natural talent playing football. And Talon has plenty of that, but CeeDee Lamb wasn't in the weight room the way you can tell Talon is. Like, you
put CeeDee Lamb up against Amari Cooper, and one looks like a man, and one still looks like a kid, kind of. Like, he's just not a huge – he's cut, and he got bigger last year. Or his last year in college, but he's still just not naturally a large man.
I imagine CD's like the guy that can eat a pizza like by himself and doesn't like gain weight. Like he must like his metabolism must just be off the charts because OU for 3 years was just stuffing him full of calories and it just wasn't taking. Really till his junior year. That was the first time you're like, okay, he's starting to see a little something there. But yeah, so I think Talon is pushing for 5 stars. He's in that conversation for top 2 or 3 receiver in the country. I mean, obviously we've got Luther Burden also in his class at Oklahoma, way out in front right now. But I think Shetron, every time he's one of those guys that the momentum is building. Like every time he goes out, he puts out a good performance. And it kind of increases him in everybody's eyes. So he had another good day. Had a couple of drops. And I think if there's anything I would say about Talon, just every once in a while you'll see that from him, or just mentally just doesn't quite loses focus, I guess you'd say. So like he'll be fine. I don't think it's any big deal. It's just something where sometimes at a camp where he's just dominating, you'll see him drop one he wouldn't normally.
Well, he had a little bit of a footing issue, too, on Saturday. I don't know what that was exactly, but
There was a lot of that going around.
Bring one set of cleats and maybe you got a field that needs to be replaced or something.
Mm-hmm.
Capella has a nice facility. It seemed like there were a lot of guys that were doing that, though.
I saw it in the DB drills a lot when I was watching guys like Lorenzel DeBose and Kenishal Thomas and some of those guys.
Well, Josh, we kind of directed it since we opened in Dallas, but just kind of we gave Bob a chance to kind of give his overall thoughts. What else kind of just stood out to you about the Dallas camp?
Bob's dead right. I mean, the Chris McClellan performance was outstanding, but it was the offensive line group. I mean, I don't know when Texas is going to stop producing all these offensive linemen, but man, there's a lot of them. And then this year you throw in Oklahoma. Cade McConnell was really solid. Jacob Sexton was outstanding. I kind of like what I was just saying about Talon. Every time I see Jacob, he's just a little better than the time I saw him before. He just seems to always get a little bit better, and I think is becoming, and he does a lot of work with former OU offensive lineman J.R. Conrad with their group, and I think you can see it. Like, he is a technically sound offensive lineman who is still filling out his frame, still getting bigger, still getting stronger. He carries his weight really well. I mean, there's just I see a lot of growth still there for Jacob Sexton, but I think he is one of those guys. I wouldn't put him up on like Andrew Rame's level, because Andrew Rame was almost a college offensive lineman from his understanding at the high school level. But like Rame, and that the weight room is kind of his next big. Like, once he gets in there and starts getting on the training table and putting on weight and getting bigger and stronger, it could really see a big jump in his game. So there's some comparison there. Obviously, Cam Dewberry was, not quite himself, but it's crazy. Cam Dewberry's 70% is better than most people's 100%. He was coming off of surgery, wasn't quite himself, but I thought he still played really well. I liked what I saw Lorenzel DeBose, the defensive back from Louisiana that OU's involved with, and I know Bob talked to him, so I'll let him dive into that if there was anything kind of interesting to come out of that conversation. But really, it was a good, solid camp. I thought the offensive line, defensive line was really the strongest group, but getting to see Anthony Hill, the linebacker from Denton Ryan in the 2023 class, that guy's got a chance to be a top 15 player in the country. And is 6'2", 230, runs. I mean, he is everything Brian Odom would hope to land at inside linebacker. I've got no doubt.
What did you think of Demetrius Hunter's day?
I thought it was solid. I thought it was good. I didn't think he was great. I didn't think he was overwhelming. But he is a guy that really understands that position. He plays it well. I also think he's a better athlete. So sometimes in those pass drill settings, you don't get to see him, pull out and catch a guard or get to the second level and do some of that stuff. So where I think is where he really excels. But I thought he was good. Like I said, it wasn't a great D-line group, so he didn't get challenged a lot. But he's a guy that, he's kind of compact and kind of short-armed. And his dad was showing me a video of him doing like 17 reps at 225. He is one of those guys that if he can get you in that phone booth and he sets his feet and sets his base, you're done. You're not getting underneath him, and he's so powerful with his hands. Like I said, there are ways he can be attacked, but like I said, once if he can get in front of you and square you up, it's done.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just getting the news about Jadeveon Clowney signing with the Browns.
Browns Super Bowl. It's coming up. Happy birthday, Baker.
Is he still elite?
Clowney?
Yeah.
No, probably not. But he can help.
He's sure. Second tier. He's not going to look bad across from Myles Garrett. Those are your two ends. You can win with that.
That's a good pickup. By the way, it was announced officially. Our friends of the program, Kings of Leon, will be playing the opening night concert in front of the
That'd be tight.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That would be really cool.
Happy for them. Maybe they'll sell a lot of records out of the deal.
Some NFTs. Jinx. Hey, David Stone's going to be a badass.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
That's a good one.
I'll be completely honest. I didn't realize he's a 2024 kid. I was, for some reason, just thinking of the back of my mind he was 2023. So will the What was the kid's name from Duncanville that's also a 2024 kid? The Simpson. Is it Colin?
The linebacker.
Is it
kid.
Colin
The linebacker
Simpson?
kid.
Or Simmons?
Something like that. I
It
don't
was
have my
something
roster right in front of
But
me.
yeah, the 2024 class in the state of Texas at defensive back was another story.
Was
these are names that we're not going to know just yet, but it wouldn't surprise me if the names who were good Sunday end up being names we remember for OU in the next couple of years.
Josh, was the linebacker that you liked from Carthage there?
Kip Lewis was not there.
Kip Lewis was not there.
Okay.
I thought the Nick Carraway kid had a pretty good day. That ended up winning, I believe, the linebacker MVP.
Yeah, he did. He took home MVP. That was one of those days, kind of like 2 years ago at that camp. The afternoon session, you're like, there's not as much here. And then you started watching, and you're like, well, there's a lot of good young guys here, like a lot of pups. Because that was kind of, that was the year, like, Jacob Sexton showed up, and we're like, oh, he's promising. And, Nate Anderson was there. Nobody knew who Nate Anderson was at that point in time, and then ends up, becoming a rival to the 100 guys. So it was interesting to watch a lot of the young guys. You could start to kind of see separating, maybe from some of the upperclassmen that weren't quite on their level.
Another kid that I thought on the defensive side of the ball that I think, Bob, you mentioned on Sunday in your recap, or Monday morning in your recap, and then Josh, you talked about him this morning in Oklahoma, was the Nico Davalier kid, the 2022 strong side defensive end out of Arkansas.
It was he got, and I felt bad for him because he just got overshadowed by McClellan. Like, sure. I thought he had a pretty good day, and I thought of all the guys I saw, he was probably the best with his hands. I talked about it in Oklahoma. Like, he was really good. That lineman would get that initial punch, and he would have just a great response to it, a good slap away to create some space for himself. Now, I will say, guys, he's listed at 6'5", 275. What would you say, thinking about it in your mind, you'd have him closer to?
He ain't 6'5", I can tell you that.
No, not 6'5".
Because
closer to 6'1.5",
6'1.5",
6'2".
Yeah, I was saying 6'2". Yeah, because Chris McClellan's not 6'5" either, and Chris McClellan was clearly larger than Nico. He's a little narrow-bodied, kind of in some ways reminded me of Corey Roberson.
I could see that.
Yeah, just some. I think maybe Corey's a little more athletic, but like I think there's some comp there. But yeah, I thought he was very solid all day. Really, was just kind of every rep was good. Didn't take that bad beat that you saw some of the guys taking. As another defensive lineman that I didn't know, or I knew him, but a guy that I didn't know much about was Trevion Williams, the defensive lineman from Mississippi, the guy with the green hair.
The guy with the green hair.
Wow.
There's always one. There's always one.
Hey, he probably did it just to stick out.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys can attest, that dude was carved out of wood. I mean, like, that was an impressive-looking guy, and it makes sense because he was literally
didn't Will
listed as
Sunderland
an inside linebacker.
Didn't Will Sunderland have red hair one year?
Yeah, he did something like that.
Jalen Redmond had the red streaks in his hair.
Exactly.
Forever.
For years.
In the dreads.
Yep. He, but no, like I said, he was listed as an inside linebacker on Rivals, and I was like, he's 6'4", 250. That dude's not playing inside linebacker ever again. But could be, he's a guy that, I think is going to end up pretty major Power 5. I mean, he's a very good player, very rough. I mean, you could tell he played a lot of linebacker. He hadn't spent a lot of time at defensive line, and you could see it when some of the better linemen would go up against him, and they could deal with his speed off the edge, or they could deal with his inside move. He didn't have a secondary option. He didn't have, okay, that didn't work, let me go to my spin move. Like, he didn't know how to do any of that yet. But once he does, man, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he's a guy in 3 or 4 years that people are like, yeah, everybody had him underrated. He was really good.
I feel like you're a little bit shook on the height thing after what's happened with Jordan Mukes. Like he's the human optical illusion. We just that's his nickname now, the optical illusion. Jordan Mukes.
He's not 6'1". I will die on this hill. That's just crazy.
Maybe he just always walked on his tippy toes and you just didn't notice it when he was around you.
Unless he's wearing lifts. He's got 3-inch
He
shoes.
might have been lifting. He might have been lifting.
It is. Wow, I just watched the Seinfeld Jimmy with the platforms on his shoes.
Yeah,
Jimmy's lifting. But no,
no, that was the short actors. That was when Kramer.
Oh yeah, no, Costanza wanted to do it. He like went in with him on it, so they got like a whole shipment, and then Kramer, what was it? I can't remember what caused it, but he and Kramer get in a fight, and Kramer hurt his knee, and Jimmy couldn't run, and so Costanza had to do the jump.
You're talking about the shoes, the weird. Those
like in the mid-'90s, everybody like talked about those shoes, like that'll make you jump higher,
there were
man.
kids in my junior high that had. I mean, they had those all the way back to when I was in junior high. That's like 30 years ago.
I believe it. But anyway, what were we? That's. I mean, and I talked about it a little bit in woke. Like that has been a repercussion of COVID. Coaches not being able to go out and see these guys in person. Say whatever you want. I'm 6'10". I'm Raleek Brown's 6'3". Like whatever. Like just say whatever you want
until the wheels fall off.
Because I still and I say that I've told this story before, but the guy that used to speak at the rivals camps, he was a coach in the Kansas City area. He was buddies with Krabby, and he had two players one year. One of them was Wayne Chambers, former Oklahoma linebacker, and then he had this little slot receiver. He goes, Wayne Chambers was 6'3", 215. I told him, Wayne, go to whatever you want to. Go to any camp you want to. Go anywhere you want. You look like $1 million. Go. That receiver, I would hide him when coaches came to campus because I didn't want them to know he was 5'7". I told him 5'9", and I hit him and hit him and hit him, and everybody fell in love with his tape, and he got a few offers, and it literally wasn't until he had committed to, I believe it was Kansas, that the coach would let the Kansas coaches see him. So, like, I mean, that is
poor Kansas. They've
that's
just
what
been
you're
getting over for so long.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's going on right now. It's just this kind. I mean, like, there's no way to check it. There's unless it's like this where we see them in person. And I don't mean any knock on any of these guys. I just want to be honest when we talk about it and somebody goes on Rivals and searches Nico DeVilliers or however you say his last name, they're going to say, oh, he's 6'5", he's this.
Well,
and
here's the thing, too. Like, this makes me wonder. Like, is OU photoshopping their photos that they take now?
They look a lot bigger.
Lincoln is, like, shorter. Like, so is OU dicking around with, like, heights to confuse people that certain people are bigger than others or shorter than others?
They've got one where he's standing next to Jordan Mukes, and Jordan Mukes is the same height, don't they? I know it.
I didn't believe that Caleb Williams was only 6'1" because he had a photo with Lincoln where he was just as tall as Lincoln, and Lincoln is a legit 6'4", 6'5". Like, he's a tall man.
No. Is he really?
No, he is.
There is no way.
No
way. I think you just haven't seen Lincoln in years.
He's tall.
He's not that tall.
Hold on.
He's not 6'4".
There is no way. If he's 6'4", then I'm 6'2". And I'm not 6'2".
For the record, Eddie is absolutely not 6'2".
Well, Kerry's looking that up. I will say, I thought the three defensive backs, and they might not be Oklahoma guys, but I thought all three of Corey Gordon, Canajol Thomas, and Jocelyn Malaska, I thought they played pretty well on Sunday, given the circumstances. I mean, they stacked up with just about everybody else.
Guys, I mean, we could, you guys know I would love to have that conversation, but I thought there were a lot of Oklahoma kids that did really well. And as Eddie is giving love to a Putnam City West Patriot and Corey Gordon, Jaleel Johnson from Putnam City North, that dude looks like $1 million. Like he's a guy that's going to keep going in recruiting. He'll pick up plenty more attention.
I was going to say, is he a guy that, he puts a little bit more tape out, teams are actually able to go see him? Because I think that's important for a guy like that. He's a very athletic build. I think he could probably pick up more than just a generic, I think he has that Missouri offer and stuff like some of those schools.
Oh, I absolutely think so, because it's exactly what, we're talking about. Once people can go see him and realize he's 6'3", almost 6'4", and probably 245 pounds, and I mean, and well put together, not just like kind of soft and fleshy. Like he's a good-looking guy. There's no doubt. I mean, like Kansas State should be on him. Oklahoma State should be on him. Like if OU wasn't in such a good position with some elite defensive linemen, I could absolutely see OU involved there. I mean, he is that impressive on the hoof, and then at the same time, his tape, there's a lot of good stuff there. It's raw and it's rough, but you give him time and let him grow, that dude could be a player, absolutely.
The first time that Bob and I saw him was against Cade McConnell in that playoff game a year ago against Choctaw, and they had. I mean, if you really want to nerd out, go watch the Cade McConnell Jaleel Johnson matchup on Huddle. It was a pretty good game.
And Josh, you mentioned
that had some good matchups all around.
That's kind of where Nico's another name now. Like how. Is this pecking order any clearer than we think? It just seems like there's... Now, we've had this before, where we thought there were 6, 7, or 8 guys, and then by the end of the cycle, they might have gotten one or two. So for as good as it looks right now, how realistic is it, do you think, about getting those plan A guys like Dindy and like Amari and like Derek Brown or Derek Moore? And where does that leave someone like a McClellan or a Nico that maybe you feel like in other years you would have taken them in a heartbeat, and now this year you're kind of playing the waiting game? Yeah,
and that's where it does. It gets interesting. I mean, because, guys, a few months ago, we were talking about Bear Alexander and Gabe Dindy and, Tyson Ford. I mean, Kerry, sorry. It's going to be okay, buddy.
No, he's a good dude. I like Tyson Ford.
No, I know. No,
he saved my ass more than anything.
Yeah, he still hits me up. He's a good kid. I got no problem with Tyson.
I just cannot imagine if you would have drove all the way to St. Louis.
No, then it would have been a totally different deal.
I mean, you talk about at least Jacob Phillips gave us the commitment. We got the story. He might have decommitted.
Yeah.
I mean, this kid would have completely effed you
we
over.
knew what we were in store for. In all seriousness, with Jacob Phillips, we like to joke about that. But you know the score. You're like, this kid's in SEC country. He's committing to Oklahoma months before signing day. Anything could happen. We knew that. Yep. That's why I half joked with him, like, if you decommit, I'm coming back here.
Well, but to Bob's question, I mean, I really like where OU is with Gabe Dindy. I feel confident about that situation. I think they're in really good shape. When he talks, like, to me or to really anyone, and he'll talk about relationships he has, Thibodeau's the one that you can tell, like, he's connected with him. Like, because even going back to last year when it was his birthday, OU did this big thing for his birthday, and it kind of wished him a happy birthday on this video thing. And I kind of asked him, I said, Gabe, did anybody else even do it? He said, nobody else even said anything. So, like, OU's been very plugged in from very early on, has connected with his parents. There's just a lot of reason to believe that's a good situation. The one that throws a monkey wrench in things, for me, especially as it relates to Chris McClellan, is Jure Bledsoe, the big defensive lineman from Bremen, which I talked to Sam Spiegelman some this week. I talked about it I think I've talked about it on the board. I may need to go back and make sure of that. But this is a guy that Oklahoma's making a run with. And, again, Sam mentioned kind of everybody around Bledsoe talking about him having a very unique relationship with Thibodeau, that they've really connected on some deeper levels. And that's kind of the coach he is most familiar with, most comfortable with at this point in time. So that's huge for OU, and especially if they can open up, get him up to campus, all those sort of things. Now, Bledsoe is going to be close on grades. There are some hurdles there that he's got to clear. So there's multiple levels to why that could be confusing. And this is a guy dead between basically Austin and College Station and Waco. There is a lot of syntax pull here, so we'll have to see how that works out, if that ends up playing a big role. I know a lot of people are kind of betting on A&M, and I think I would too if I had to, but Oklahoma's making that interesting. But should they miss out on him, I think Chris McClellan would absolutely be the next guy in line. So that's kind of what you got inside. Outside, it feels a lot like what you thought inside was going to be a few months ago. Now, we'll have to see, does it change and it's not as good as it looked or whatever. But, I mean, there is a conversation and there's a world that exists where OU could get Amari Abor, Derek Moore, and maybe even Kenyatta Jackson from Florida. That's a Chaminade Madonna guy, the same high school that produced Marquise Brown. So there's a lot of momentum right there on the outside right now. And a couple other guys that are absolutely involved in the conversation as well. The Danny Dennis Sutton kid. Jaden Scarlett is going to be part of that. So, I mean, there are a lot of – Jahad Campbell has talked about setting up an official visit to OU. Daniel Lyons. I mean, I could just keep kind of going and going and going. But there are – defensive line – I absolutely see a world where they get to Chris McClellan and want him and take him and those kind of things. Nico, I don't know if I can get there. I just think there's a few other guys a little higher on their pecking order right now.
I can't find the 2002 Texas Tech roster.
I'll ask him.
Still looking for Lincoln's height.
I'll tweet him.
I don't know that he. I think he might be lying about being a player at Texas Tech.
Oh, there's no. Well, I think there's some pictures of him in uniform, aren't there?
I found the official old website 2002 roster. He's not on that one, which I could see him not being on one since he's a walk-on.
I don't know.
According to Celebs Age Wiki, they do not have his height or weight listed.
Oh,
it's not available.
Such a reliable source.
I know it was going to be something you could absolutely write home about, like, and just know that was factual.
What if the first ever just random text from me was me asking him how tall he really is?
What would be awesome is after
that could be your question tomorrow.
Yeah, do that.
I can fit that in at the end, like, hey, Lincoln, what is your barbecue? What's up with the barbecue, and how tall are you? That'd be the most two random questions.
PopularBio.com also has no information on his age, height, or weight. This is getting bad. These sites that we thought we could trust.
We know how old he is. I mean, he's 38, right?
See,
37, I thought.
Yeah, he'll turn 38 this year. Yeah,
Okay.
He's 37
Correct.
now. Yep.
Yes. Like that first week of the season. He's
have one of those
same type of birthday as Stoops had.
You know what? I have one of those laser levels or those laser measures. See, you can't expect me to say laser, and then measure.
It's a tough transition, is what that is.
Laser measure. Laser.
If we can work leisure and measures into a sentence, that's going to be amazing.
Why has this become a pod tradition where somehow I say the word measure?
Drink.
But I have one of those. Maybe I should just take it and next time we're in person and just like sneak it up behind him and hold it and point it to the ground and see what it lists him as.
Well, I mean, you want to be really accurate, so you're going to want to put a board on top of his head and measure from the floor. I mean, just to make sure you really get it right.
Laser.
I don't know if they're using the same measurements that they used for some of the players. We can't trust it.
They triple checked for us on Jordan Mukes. I'm telling you.
No,
I mean, they did change Nathan Rollins Kabonge.
Is it Kabonge? Is that how you say it?
Okay. I just don't like the nickname thing. Like we're buddies with him.
I think for a
hey, Trouble, what's going on?
I think for a hyphenated name and by the way, I said this morning, I have good odds that somebody within the Oklahoma media has a restraining order filed on them by the new Oklahoma women's basketball coach.
Yeah.
I think that's going to happen. You can use your imagination.
I think it could
might be a violation of probation.
It could be.
Are we taking bets?
It could be just an athletic department
just
wide.
say straight University of Oklahoma. I think it would cover the entire campus, so it could be. What were we talking about?
Nicknames. Players.
If it's a hyphenated name, I think it's completely okay to, like, Deller and Turner Yell. I think DTY is okay to say.
Okay. I might be able to get behind that, but calling him Trouble?
Yeah, we probably shouldn't be doing that. It's a good segue into team stuff.
I don't want to get to the point where they're putting their Twitter or Instagram handles on their jerseys.
Oh, I do, because then that's all you could refer to him as.
Would you just call everyone at when you ask him a question?
I think you would have to.
At Troubleman13.
God, that would
At
maybe kill
Death
me.
Baby.
And I'm kidding when I say that I hope that happens.
Josh would be the one that has the weirdest names first of mind.
Oh, I would absolutely, like, if that was me, I said it when the UCF did it, I was like, I would literally immediately change my name to the most awful shit that does not belong on the back of a jersey ever. And they would have to be like, okay, Josh ruined it for everybody. We've rethought the whole rule.
At Baby Killer 37.
little kid lover. Like
Oh
Scott.
my God!
Like Michael Scott wanted to be.
Nope. Oh, Scott's tots.
I'm glad that tied into something and that wasn't just off your brain, Bob, because I was worried.
I mean, that person would have to be recruited by Penn State, right?
Okay, there it is. Ba-doom, boom. So we did talk to the defense, and Josh, you and I have been kind of hearing this. And what I took out of yesterday, I know Bob was very excited to talk to Jalen Redmond, and it was cool that he faced the media and talked to us after all the stuff he went through a year ago. And I want to get to some of that. But, I mean, Jaden Davis yesterday, talking to him, I tweeted
Really
out
good.
immediately. I'm just going to play this. And Josh and I had been hearing about Latrell McCutchin and how impressive he had been. And if Jaden Davis, if Latrell McCutchin needed a hype man, he got one yesterday in Jaden Davis.
I feel as if Latrell is elite. I mean, he's came in and he's really made a statement. First couple of days, I think he had a couple interceptions, PBUs, and stuff like that. Like he in 7-on-7, he's earned the respect of the team very quickly. From the first 7-on-7 to now we're into spring football, getting close to the end. He's definitely earned my respect, and he's a great player. He's a great individual. He's a long corner. You know, he wants to be in your face. He wants to get his hands on you, and that's Speed D. That's what Alex Grinch and Coach Manning loves, and he's doing it very well. He's making plays on the ball, and I feel like he's going to be a great Oklahoma corner.
And, you know, we talked a lot about the linebackers last week and the depth that they're building there. But Eddie, to me, and Bob, even Josh, anyone, it's so bizarre because I don't want to make this into a Mike Stoops thing. This is a Bob Stoops thing. Like, I don't ever, and look, it's jumping the gun a little bit, but I don't think OU has ever had as much depth at the same time at linebacker and corner that they have going into next season.
I think just overall, like if you look at everything that has been said over the course of the 3.5 weeks that spring football has been happening, it's like there is, and I feel like we say this every spring, but there is legitimate like foundation for them saying that not only have they changed culturally over there, but I think just mentally they feel like they're in a better spot. I thought what Deshaun White said was kind of under the radar, just as far as I see the game of football differently with these new coaches. Like, there's been a sense of confidence that has been instilled, and obviously I think it's backed up when you go out and do it and play well, but I don't know. I mean, I have rather high expectations for this defense. They have put themselves in, and I thought Jaden Davis's answer to Garen's question as far as, is this a national championship defense? It was a talking point, but at the same time, it was like, I don't think that, like, I think a couple years ago they would have said, yeah, we're there. When in reality,
you didn't really believe them when they said it.
And when in reality they were so far from. But you're right. Like, you talk about, you know, Deshaun White talking about the inside linebacker room, Brian Odom talking about it the week before, Roy Manning talking about, you know, just all the bodies that they have at their disposal, whether it be cornerback or safety. It's fascinating. It's a completely different team in that it has been overhauled. The defensive side of the football has been overhauled, and now they're actually able to kind of stand on solid footing and say, yeah, they can play defense.
I feel a lot more confident at inside backer than the secondary, though.
Well, safety, I don't think has been solved.
Like Woody Washington, DJ Graham, they had flashes, but now, like, they got to be the guys. Like, they're going to have to do it every single time. And, like,
I mean, Woody's been the starter most of the last season. I mean, he's proven to me.
I'm not there yet.
I like the cornerback situation is a lot more interesting. I mean, it all goes hand in hand, but like, and I think a lot of people talked about it on the board as far as like, where does Justin Harrington fit into this thing? Is he really going to play cornerback? And what does that mean at safety? Are they really that happy with what Jeremiah Cradell's doing or Bryson Washington?
I gotta think this is let's just make Harrington happy and let him figure out for himself that we have better options. And that he could really help the most at safety.
if there's one talking point that you take out of the defensive side of the football over the course of spring football, it is, and I think this is being pounded into their brains day in and day out, it's that you're not just going to play because you're an upperclassman. And I feel like that has been reinforced time and time again every time we talk to a defensive guy, that you have to earn your spot. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about as far as the previous regime. And like, there's definitely they want to make that an emphasis. Have they not?
No, I think that's been the message of camp, especially with Brian Odom and the linebackers. But
I think you hear from the one thing, top down from Alex Grinch.
The one thing that I don't feel like we've gotten good feedback on is that nickel spot. We don't know how well Jeremiah Cradell is playing and how good he can be, because I think that's the one area where I'm like, I'm not so sure about that position.
No, for sure. I mean, we know the hype coming in and how they said Cradell was doing everything right, even if it wasn't translating on the field yet. But now it's been a while since we've talked to Grinch. You know, we've gone through a lot of the other assistants, which is great, but it's kind of left that safety nickelback in terms of having concrete info. It's been lacking here.
Is Bryson Washington coming along?
Right, exactly. Yep.
Sure.
Those are the answers that we need to get if we can get Grinch next week.
I think we'll talk to Grinch next week. So,
well, at least we'll see it. I mean, I know it's a practice, but we'll at least see it in a game.
I mean, that
just
could
the
be
different
one
bodies
thing
out there
that's
throwing around.
A little interesting about this spring game is that they do have more bodies, and you will. It can be more than just 10 series or so, because you're going to want to see, and you're going to want Caleb Williams to get a lot of playing time. You're going to want to throw the ball a lot. So I think you'll see that secondary and what they can and can't do. The other thing, guys, I wanted to move to offense a little bit. I know we talked to defense yesterday. Well, actually, let's do one. Let's talk about Jalen Redmond, because I thought, really interesting talking to him yesterday. I thought he handled it really well.
Yep.
Bob, I know you had a question to him, but to me the most interesting thing was, he was asked about getting the vaccination, and it was something I hadn't even thought about. But here is Jalen Redmond.
I feel as if Latrell is elite.
No, that's not him.
He's
that's here is Jalen Redmond.
And with the vaccine, I haven't gotten it yet, and I'm kind of iffy on getting it because I've been hearing some things with blood clots and stuff. So
yeah,
I mean, I'm thinking about it, but I'm still kind of iffy. I'm gonna wait for a little bit. I think I'm gonna wait a while.
And I was told, you guys know, I was following along like when he was going to opt out and all that stuff, and he got that DUI, and it was just kind of a rough time for him. But he had already had COVID when all that stuff had happened, when he was opting out. So, and he got past it, didn't really, affect him that much. So it is interesting with him and his issues with blood clots, and some of what's floating around and some uncertainty there. Like, he's one of those guys, like, he might end up just having to be that, one of the few guys that gets in contact tracing next year, that, because I could see why he would be hesitant to get vaccinated with his own personal health issues.
Yeah, at least it doesn't sound like he's afraid of it, though. I think that's the one thing. You can tell that last summer he probably was. The uncertainty, didn't know how things were going to shake out. And he sort of alluded that perhaps by the middle of the season, he wanted to come back. You can almost tell, like, man, I wish I would have just waited out a little bit longer. I could have been out there, especially with Isaiah Thomas killing it. His roommate is one of his best friends. That probably got him even more excited about the chance of trying to be out there. So he comes back for the bowl practices, and I don't think there's any, he's not hedging. He's all in. He's determined. He's driven. And now we'll see if he can finally have that happy ending that he hasn't had through the first 3 years.
I want to make a request. I want you all to kill me if we have to go through contract tracing in August, in September of next year. Of this year. No, not us. Just have to worry about that kind of stuff. I know.
I think it's still going to be there, because not all states are. I think the state of Oklahoma is doing a fantastic job, but I'm not.
No, I feel
sure
you.
Can say that for every state.
It already, makes my brain hurt thinking about it.
I do. I mean, I did see a deal where, and not to get too vaccine-y talk, but I did see a deal where Pfizer and Moderna say they're going to be able to make up for Johnson & Johnson being down.
Yeah, we really got to worry about the 6 people out of 7 million, but...
See, I didn't have a comment like that, but you took it there. So...
Better chance of getting struck by lightning twice.
I mean, the thing is, the thing that I would be concerned about, or I am concerned about, is can Jalen Redmond make it through a whole season without having those issues pop
Here's
back
the thing I thought about Redmond is, and even off of the COVID stuff, it's unbelievable how long he's been around and just how little football he's actually been able to play.
I know.
I mean, you get that first year taken away because of blood clots, and then obviously last year. In between, I mean, he's still in all of that on top of him being a relatively still young football player. I think Jamar Cain talked about that last week, just as far as...
how many games has he been in?
That he's like...
it should show. Is he played so well in 2019, but that shoulder injury happened in the Big 12 championship, which took away his entire offseason of, like, getting bigger, stronger, all that cliche stuff that we hear. Instead, he was trying to rehab that shoulder, and it took a lot longer than he thought, and it stunted his growth again.
I don't know any
13.
Okay.
13.
I was like, you were doing 4.
I couldn't think of how to show you. 13 games.
I was like, you have 4 fingers on 2 different hands that you're holding up. What does that mean?
He only appeared in 3 games in 2018 and then 13 of the 14, making 4 starts in 2019.
Yep.
I wanted to be like Carrie breathing, because Carrie was laughing into the microphone, but it sounded like he was just breathing heavy.
I couldn't think about how to show 13, so I was trying to do like the baseball thing, but I forgot which way it would show.
See, I'm reading 31, but yeah.
So that's 13. Okay.
Actually, that's not a thing, so I don't know. I've never had anybody do 2 different digits on 2 different hands.
You're just supposed to know.
Yeah, I didn't mind.
If we would have been inside of an in and out, you would have gone, 13.
Exactly. We're ordering.
That's where you two just sink.
Okay, moving on to offense. Guys, I got to tell you, and this is purely just social media that's giving me this opinion, but it seems to me like Trajan Bridges and Jaden Hazelwood are both having really good camps. Like, they seem to be really fired up about their own performance. And with Bridges, it's more like you just see a lot of highlights from the kid.
I defer to Josh on Jaden Hazelwood.
With Bridges, I totally agree. Like I won't say I've heard a lot, but what I have heard sounds like he and Rattler, dating back to recruiting, there was a really good relationship there, and I think that's carried over from kind of what I hear. I know when that first interview Spencer did with you all, he kind of talked about that, and I think that's added up. Hazelwood, I'm so hesitant about it because I had heard some stuff last week, and then I want to give Gabe and Teddy some credit. I heard them talking about it a little bit, that there has been some hesitation, like he's just not quite there as far, and it's
with
not
the
like
knee and stuff.
Yeah, like he's just not quite confident in it yet. It's not that he can't do it or that he won't be there. It's just that he's not quite there with it, and that's okay. Like, it's understandable. I get it, but it's just been kind of. Like I said, I heard it and I was like, I don't know how, that's such a serious conversation. I didn't want to make too much of it. And then I heard Gabe and Teddy kind of talk about it. I was like, okay, that sounds like there's something valid kind of happening here. But yeah, it just sounds, like I said, that he just hasn't quite gotten back to full speed yet and is still kind of figuring his way through, that brace and, just living the receiver life, all those extreme cuts and moves you're making. Other than corner, I can't think of a position that's more aggressive to a knee than playing wide receiver.
The guy we just haven't heard anything about this year?
Theo Weiss.
I was just literally as you guys were talking about that, I was like,
today.
Where's he been?
But I haven't really heard anything about Stogner either.
Have been banged up. I don't know if they've missed all of spring, but they've been.
Yeah, Woody Washington, I don't think has done much at all this spring, and I wouldn't be surprised if Theo was kind of in that same camp. But the other name that was mentioned yesterday or brought up, Mario Williams, and I've heard good things about him from other people too.
Yep. I haven't heard anyone that isn't like, it's kind of like, wow. Just like, there's not a lot of, oh man, we love this about him. It's just like, he's really damn good. It's just one of those kind of things. Kind of like what you heard about Marvin last spring. Like, just, I don't know what's going to become. I don't know if he's going to have 70 catches this year or 20 catches, but I know he's really, really good.
Will Marvin Williams. Will Marvin Mims lead Oklahoma in receiving again this year?
Probably.
Yeah.
If he's inside, I'm not sure.
Well, it sounds like, part of what is Jaden's deal is he has moved inside. I mean, he's playing inside more now instead of just being an outside. So he's kind of learning as well as he's trying to get better physically. So to me, that sounds like Mario is the outside guy now.
Yeah.
They're going to kind of use him like Marquise a little bit, maybe.
And probably used him kind of in the ways they used Marvin last year to kind of be that field-stretching guy. And then you still got Marvin working
both
underneath.
Sides. I mean, yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
I meant to say, besides Drake Stoops, I mean, obviously he's going to win the Blitnikoff, but...
Is he still a walk-on?
No, he's a scholarship.
Okay. Is he still eligible for the...
Oh, the...
Larry Bud Melman, or whatever that's called?
The Burlsworth?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, Baker won it when he was on scholarship,
yeah,
right?
That's true.
And then everybody had it.
But he won it before he won the Heisman.
But he was up for it all 3 years, wasn't he? 2015,
yeah,
2016,
he was up
2017.
for it
Yeah.
when he won the Heisman. Obviously, they weren't going to give it to him.
Should have.
But yeah, he was up for it.
He wasn't enough of a tragic figure to win it that year.
It's probably true.
No, but I mean, look, the receivers have been challenged. Lincoln has made no bones about that. It does seem like, that they've taken it seriously. And Josh is not a buyer in of the bloody hyena. I get it.
No, that's gross. I don't need that on my timeline, man. I got kids to raise. Like, what is that? Nothing. It's nothing. It's nature, baby.
So when nature shows come on, you just flip past them as fast as you can, like something bad's going to happen here?
It's such a fine line because, they love, Animal Planet. They're like every other little kid on the planet. They love animals and stuff. So you'll be watching something, and you're like, oh, yeah, this is cool. This is fine. And then all of a sudden, the cheetah hunts the gazelle. And you're like, oh, shit, this is going to go bad. And then, it's just he's just eating flesh. And they're like, what is that? And I'm like, baby, that I mean, at that point, what are you going to do? You're like, that's how they eat, honey. They track down animals and they eat them, and they're like Laney's kind of like, okay, and Layla's like, ew, she thinks it's disgusting. So that everybody has their takes, but yeah, I mean, you try to show them the animal stuff and not too much of this is, it's a hard knock life out there.
Girls, crikey, it's the Irwins. That's your speed. That's what you need.
Oh, believe me, we know all about Bendy Irwin's baby. We are on track with that.
Is that the daughter?
Yeah.
Yes.
She has a baby?
Yep.
Wow. How old is she?
25, something like that.
Okay.
Is she even that old?
Oh, is she not? I really don't know. I think the son's a little bit younger than me.
20. She's 22. She's
okay.
22. So I knew I had it in my head more like 2021. So you're, I guess, about as close.
Split
as
the
me,
difference.
Yeah.
A guy that was pretty impressive that we talked to, I guess on Thursday after we recorded. Did we talk about Eric Gray last week?
Wednesday because of Moser.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought Eric Gray was really impressive, just talking wise.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
He was. And I mean, he's going to be a factor. I hope we get to see him in the scrimmage. I mean, I hope we get to see that
entire group because the running back thing is really interesting.
You have to put Kennedy Brooks out there after being gone
for a year.
Well,
he has to get hit. It's kind of like the Redmond situation. You need those guys to go through a little bit of it, don't you? Like the running back thing is crazy just for the fact that you have all the guys that are coming back. You obviously add Eric Gray, but this whole thing with what they're doing with Mikey Henderson, I don't see how you don't keep him out on the field at all times.
I mean, he's intriguing as a running back. I think what we saw, he is a guy that just had a different
And they
kind of
did use him,
level.
I guess, a little bit last year out of the backfield and do different things. It's just Like, I think
Well, I
Mikey
mean, you go
I'm
back-
all in on Mikey Henderson.
You
I
go
think
back
he's
to
going to
the
be
two-back
unbelievable.
stuff that you had with Joe Mixon and Rodney Anderson. I mean,
But who's the odd
or
man out? If
Samaje
Eric Gray is
Perine.
as good as they think he could be,
Mixon.
Kennedy Brooks literally averaged over 10 yards a carry last time he was on the field.
Yeah.
And I still think that Seth McGowan's going to be really good. And Marcus Major, I mean, he was playing against a JV team per Dan Mullen, but it was still a pretty good performance in the Cotton
was.
Bowl. I don't know. I find that whole thing to be rather fascinating about how they're going to split carries and how that hole's going to.
I don't think running. Somebody was doing that like that. How are they going to make it through the season with they got so many guys? I'm like, look, you never have too many guys at running back.
Nope.
That's something that we've
Someone's
learned.
gonna get hurt.
Somebody's going to get hurt. I mean, it seems like every year now there's a game where somebody has to move from H-back to play running back.
Guys, remember we
They've
were
already
having that
made that. They've
conversation.
preemptively made that move, and there's not much more else you can take from the H-back room.
No, there's not.
It's crazy.
We were just
that's
having that conversation last year about how deep the running back room was, and then week one they start Marcus Major.
God, that seems like that was forever ago.
That is weird. Well, they did that because he was the only guy that wasn't old. I mean, that wasn't a pup. Everybody else would have been playing their first game.
TJ Pledger was COVID.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like there were some extenuating. I mean, you know, when we were having this conversation last year, we weren't thinking about half the team, having some sort of contact tracing or Kennedy Brooks opting out. None of that was on the horizon. So.
Yeah, it's just weird. It's every year you start out and you think, oh wow, this is a really deep running back room, and then you have a game where you have one guy. I mean,
But you've seen it enough with Rodney Anderson, Marcellus Sutton, Trey Sermon. They've all had season-ending injuries. You don't think it doesn't have to be that to that extent, but someone's going to be banged up to where you're never at full strength at that position.
Was that too soon to mention Marcellus for you, Kerry, or are you okay? That was your guy.
I mean, I just said it wasn't my guy. I just made a comparison that if he kind of looked a little bit like what's his name for the Vikings.
Oh, Dalvin Cook?
I mean, you got to admit that spring game he had was a really good game.
Well, I mean, next week we got to prepare ourselves because there will be somebody.
Will be a spring champion.
Yeah, and our duty is to carry that banner throughout the summer and say he's going to be an All-American. Todd Hudson?
Oh, that's a good one.
And see, what happened is I would shit on that guy every year, and then Dom Whaley happened.
Everybody got stuck with him.
And I was like, just settle down. Dom Whaley is a walk-on. He's nothing. He's never going to play. I did that whole thing. And then what does he do? Makes me look like a complete idiot.
Do you remember how mad people used to get, Kerry, when we would shoot down the walk-ons?
Yeah.
We're not covering that. Like, Josh, why don't you make a note on the scholarship chart of the walk-ons on the roster? I'm not doing that. I'm not. Nope. It's a scholarship chart. That defeats the whole damn purpose.
Yeah, and we'd fight that, but I gotta say, it's changed a lot. I mean, lot more walk-ons are making impacts now.
Well, and the funny thing is, just with the
might
depth
be the Baker effect,
just with the depth that Oklahoma has, and it's not even walk-ons, but you're going to be seeing good players throughout the game. When they start shuffling guys in the second quarter,
Yep.
It's like, well, let's see what whoever could be Brian Meade might be getting in midway through the third quarter or whatever, the second half of the spring game. It's just by necessity.
He's trying to piss everyone off out there by mentioning Brian Meade.
I
love
you're
Brian
trying to
Meade.
upset me.
I love Brian Meade. I support all walk-ons. I think everybody knows that.
It's going to be fun getting to see a lot of people play, and it'll suck for a while too toward the end, and you'll be like, I remember this is what a spring game is like. We say that all the time.
I'm going to make an oath that I will not bitch and complain on next Saturday.
I've got a sneaky one that I like.
You got an MVP candidate?
Bob, it's supposed to be really cold.
Noah Arinze.
Yep.
I'm going to get on him. Speed rusher, kind of outside. He'll come in, be facing the third string offensive tackle. Everybody's going to get jacked up about it. I kind of like that. I think that makes some sense.
I don't think he qualifies.
It has to be a walk-on? Okay, that's fair. I mean, does Robert Congle count as a former walk-on?
Best hair on the team, by the way.
Who was that? Was it Jermaine Hardison that was always the spring game MVP?
He had some good ones. I remember going way back to the Von Stoenhoek guy, like in like the early 2000s. Like every time they were like, "Oh, he's going to be great," and I'm like, "Yeah, he's a walk-on still. Yeah, he's still a walk-on."
All right.
I'm particularly interested to see how like here's a name that just I'd never even think of. Like, can a Brian Darby make an impact at any point?
That's a good question.
Can I'm just trying to go through the list or the roster here and see guys that, like, I'm fairly interested to see Jordan Mukes play a little bit. Sounds like he's had a good spring.
Darby's one that I would be interested to see if almost he doesn't go in the reverse direction of Mikey Henderson. Does he move toward that H-back room? Because he's I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not as big as Mikey, but, like, he's got size. He's not a little guy. And he could do a lot of that stuff and be that very skilled receiver. Wouldn't have to be – I mean, he's never going to be Braden Willis, but at the same time, Braden Willis can't do some of the stuff he could do.
How wild was that story that Kersey wrote about?
I was just thinking
Austin
about that.
Stogner.
Great job by Kersey.
I mean, I think we all knew that it was fairly serious. There had been some talk about that. Never in a million years did I think that it was that serious, that quickly.
Like, could spread to his organs.
Sure,
kind of thing.
and I mean, I didn't realize he spent 12 days in the hospital. I knew that he spent a good amount of time. I didn't realize it was 12 days, though. It's a wild, wild story.
I think we all felt pretty sure that it had to do with a staph infection, and it wasn't so much a knee bruise anymore. But I had no idea it got that dire.
It's just kind of scary the way that whole thing went down. Like, good thing that the trainers and everybody went over to his house that night and got him into McBride, and could have really ended really poorly.
Okay.
All from a bruise.
Yeah.
I know we're running a little long. There's a little bit of hoop stuff we want to get to real quick. And not women's hoops, although they did hire their new coach.
Oh, I'm all in.
Well, you're not, because they didn't hire your girl.
Well, now that she's hired, it's kind of over. I got to put Molly to the side.
Okay.
I'll still be cheering for Grand Canyon State, though.
Okay.
I'll go out there if I need
Grand
to.
Canyon State, is it?
Yeah.
It's not.
Oh, Grand
It's University.
Grand Canyon University. My bad.
My
My apologies.
That's Blue Mountain State that you're thinking of, that fictional football team.
No, I just legitimately didn't know what the school's called.
Okay, so Bob, Porter Moser putting together some of his staff. It's signing day today.
Indeed.
Tell us the latest with OU Hoops.
As of right now, Alston Mason will be the only person signing. That's another combo guard. You're going to Overland Park, Kansas, and the connection there, strangely enough, that's where Clayton Custer played at the exact same high school, and that hasn't been made official yet. But Clayton Custer and Matt Gordon will both be coming over from Loyola to be part of the support staff for Moser. And it's not the third assistant being named just yet, but that comfortability allowed Mason to feel a lot happier about the choice of going with OU. And he actually committed last Monday, and Moser asked if he would just pump the brakes and wait till the press conference Wednesday, and then he could go out with it. So that's 3 guards now. So you got Nolan, who reaffirmed Saturday. That was actually probably the biggest news of the last week, was Nolan coming out Saturday saying he's locked in with Sooner still. Bijan, now Mason. It's all about transfer portal. It's all about finding guys in the post, trying to find those bigs. Easiest target to circle is Christian Bishop out of Creighton. But then he got offered by North Carolina yesterday, so that kind of threw things in flux. But for sure, it's just you got to find some guy. You have Rick Asanza and then a bunch of guys that are like 6'6" or smaller. You're going to have to do some work in the portal, and it's going to be very intriguing to see what names really do pop up in the next 1 or 2 weeks.
As far as guys, I know that there was a little bit of Devion Harmon news out there at the end of the week last week. What can you say as far as that? And then, I'll be completely honest. It sounds like Brady Manick has a lot of interest, including North Carolina.
Yeah, you don't know what's ever really going on with Brady because he doesn't put it out there. But I did some digging yesterday, and he's got between 30 to 40 offers in the 2-3 weeks since he's gone into the portal, and North Carolina became the latest last night. So he's definitely just got his choice of what he wants to do. Does he want to go to a school that can make an Elite Eight, Final Four run and be a contributor? Or does he want to go to a smaller school where he can put up really big numbers and kind of show that maybe he could play at the next level at what people thought he was heading into this last season? Because there's no doubt this last season wasn't the last impression that he wants to make there. But it's interesting because we sort of talked about that. Guards in the portal, you're going to be able to find. There's enough of them. But finding legitimate bigs or post presence in the portal is going to be hard, and that's why Manick is really showing out right now. Going back to Harmon, you had the comments last Friday from Moser on the radio saying that it's not set in stone, but it feels like Harmon will be coming back. If he does, it's still going to be a couple months away. The Harmon family is going to go through the NBA draft process as long as they're allowed to. That means the combine. That means like personal workouts. They're doing everything by the book so that he keeps his eligibility. So like nothing's fishy there. But if the draft combine is June 21st or 27th, they want to go through that as much as they're allowed to. And then you have 10 days after that to make the call. So the question becomes, would OU still hold open that scholarship to late June or July for Harmon? I think they will. And if Harmon comes back, everyone's saying he's got to be point guard or he won't even entertain the notion of coming back. He stepped aside this year, let Austin Reeves do it, but he needs to show for the next level that he can be a point guard. And if that lines up with what Moser wants to do, then that'll definitely help the chances of Harmon coming back to Norman.
I would kind of imagine that would be a win-win for everybody. Like, I think OU would want him to run the one, but I also think that, obviously that would work out for Harmon, and I guess that kind of matters what happens with the Bryce Thompson situation. I do want to say, though, that like the Brady Manick thing, if he were to come back to Oklahoma, I think a lot of what happened last year would be a reason why. He wouldn't want... he's going to end up probably in the top 10 in scoring all time at OU if he did. I don't think that he'd want to leave kind of a legacy that's how he went out. It's kind of unfair what they were asking him to do at the end of the year. But Bryce Thompson is really interesting.
Yeah, and, Manick with that final game, that's not how he wants to go out either. Makes that first shot, and then he misses his next 6 or 7, and that's how his career ends, with just that three-pointer to start the game, and that's it. So it'll be just curious to see his line of thinking. Does it mean that much to him to try to finish what he started here, or can he accept the fact that even though it was great, the ending wasn't what he wanted, but let's try to find this next chapter and see what we can do there. And with Bryce Thompson, I don't know how great of a chance the Sooners are going to have here, but there's no doubt Porter Moser jumped on it. As soon as Bryce hit the portal yesterday, he was in contact with Bryce and Rod, his father, trying to get something set up. I think you got to look at Arkansas. I think if you're really going to stay closer to home, and if Bryce feels like he was cheated at Kansas in the way that they didn't try to include him, didn't make him a focal point, then you have to look at Tulsa, because he could get the ball 75-80% of the time, and no one's going to bat an eye, and that's the type of offense, if he wants to run, they would definitely do that. So, and again, North Carolina, another school that came calling to Thompson too. I think maybe you don't know your value until you're out there, so maybe you hit pause on him going to Tulsa, because there's been so many schools that have reached out in the 24 hours. But Sooners will make their play. I don't think it's going to be enough, and in the grand scheme of things, because they're so loaded with guards anyway, it won't be a huge hit to them. They still just somehow somewhere going to have to find some legitimate bigs through the portal in the next week or two.
Can you imagine if Arkansas added Bryce Thompson? They might be a legitimate... they already are a national title contender next year, but they could add him as well. My God.
All right. By the way, just one quick question. I know there's not much of a roster left, but any other danger of like an Emoji Gibson entering the portal?
I know, right? We're getting to this point where some of these guys you would just like to hear that they're still locked in. And Mo Gibson was the only player at Moser's press conference last week, so people always feel very confident about that. I think the one to watch was Jalen Hill. There's no doubt, because he's from Las Vegas. You got Kevin Kruger. You got Carlin Hartman. They're all going to Vegas, so you wondered if Jalen was going to make a move. But the longer you go, you start to feel that Moser's winning them over. Even though it was probably a tough situation initially for all those guys to accept that Lon's leaving and someone else is coming in. Porter, if you give him time, is going to win you over. And haven't heard anything about Elijah Harkless second guessing, or Mo, or Jalen. And then, when you add in Bijan, CJ, Mason, and if you can get Harmon, you're loaded in the backcourt. It's just you just have to find those forwards and those centers. And, we saw another one with Jonas kind of went off the board. They offered him Friday after he backed out. Now he's committed to Tennessee. It's like there's so little options. So if you can get someone like a Christian Bishop from Creighton, and I know not everyone's thrilled about it, but that is the type of name that you need to get through this type of season. And I know Moser putting a lot of work there. We'll see if he can close that deal by the time we record next week.
All right, good stuff. Josh, anything you wanted to chime in with before we get out of here today?
No, I did want to tell the NCAA how impressed I was with their edict to crack down on transfer portal logins. That's
what is their
crucial
problem?
work they're doing.
I just don't understand what their problem is and how bad they look publicly.
I thought Kersey asked the perfect question. Have you ever heard of a VPN? Like, it's not that hard to hide from you if you don't want to get caught. Like, but really, that's on the top of your priority list.
Meanwhile, you have something, and believe me, I'm not going to sit around and watch it, but it's ridiculous that they can't find a way to get commentators for the women's volleyball tournament. It's like 4 different sites in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they're not going to put it up on, their bullshit platform. It's kind of like the women's basketball tournament thing. It's ridiculous.
Doing a bang-up job.
It's your feminism segment of the day.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Enjoyed the show today. We'll be back again next week. Until then, lots of spring football coming your way. We'll be talking to Lincoln Riley tomorrow for the first time in a while, so it should be interesting to get his take on things. And then plenty of recruiting stuff still to come. Rivals camps going on, and we'll have all the latest, even more to come from Rivals Dallas that we haven't even got out there yet. So stay tuned to the website. And thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time right here on the Unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com.